All right, cube two. So before you get started on cube two, it's important that you make cube one. These cubes work in sequence, so it's best that you start at one and then move forward and do two and then three and then four and then five, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of each colored plane from cube one and copy them over. So to do that, I'm going to click once. This is a group actually, so let me explode that real quick. I'm going to click once on my top surface, hold shift and click on my right surface, hold shift and click on my left surface. So now I have all three of them selected, so I can use the move tool now, click on a point, start moving it over, and I don't want to actually move it because I still want my cube one. I'm just going to tap control and I can make a copy of it. I'll then click to set it in place. And now I have the three pieces that I need to make cube two. Now before I do that though, I think it's important that we make note that the blue piece and the yellow piece are not 3x3, so we'll need to fix that here in a minute to make sure that cube three works properly. But what I'm going to do is select the top piece, use the move tool, and start moving it down. Now if I'm having trouble moving it straight down, I can use the arrow key, the arrow keys on my keyboard, and hit the up arrow key. That restricts the movement to being only in the blue direction. Now I don't really care how far you move this thing down, but a good number to use is just 1 inch. So I'm going to type 1 and press enter. I'm going to do the same thing for my yellow board in this case. Click once, start moving it in. In this case I want to move it in the red direction, so if I'm having trouble, I'm going to use the right arrow key. That restricts it now to moving in the red direction. I'm just going to move it inwards, type 1, press enter. I'll do the same thing with my blue board. This time it's going to be in the green, so I'll use the left arrow to lock it in the green, and again type 1 and press enter. So for the most part this looks pretty good, but again if I look at my boards, we're seeing that my blue piece and my yellow piece are not quite 3x3. So I think it's a good idea to go ahead and just resolve them so we know that they're perfect. So I'm going to double click on this group with my selection tool, then switch to push-pull and click on this edge. I can then control the length of it, so I want it to match up with this edge of the whiteboard. I'll click to finish. I need to go to the other side, make sure it's lined up as well. So I could click and drag and move it there, but because it's the same distance, I'm going to undo this real quick. I can just simply double click on it and it will repeat the last push-pull distance. Now, if I go over here to cube one for just a sec, you'll see that the height of the blue is also too short by a 16th on the top, and it's too short on the bottom by a 16th. The same is true for the yellow one, so we'll keep that in mind. So I'm going to go to the top of my blue and double click, and look, it moves up 1/16. Do the same thing on the bottom, double click. I'll then switch to my selection tool and double click on the yellow board because I need to double click on the bottom to ensure that it is now the same height as my blue board. I'll do the same on the top, and we're good to go. So I'll click out of that group to stop editing it. Now this looks pretty good conceptually, but we are running into some issues where the boards are meeting in that they're clipping through each other. So I need to go ahead and fix that. So to fix it, one way to do it is to simply push one of my walls to the other side. In this case, I'm going to choose the blue one and push this surface not to the right side, let's say, but to the left side. I'll click, switch to my selection tool with the space bar, and click out. Now what we're seeing is that this blue piece is ending when it hits the yellow board. However, I need it to, conceptually continue to the other side, but I can't literally have that happen. So what I'll do is select it and switch to the move tool and just simply copy it over to where it's now on the other side of the wall. I've now prevented the clipping happening, but this board is way too long. So all I got to do though is double click on it with my selection tool, then use push-pull to change the length. And now I've resolved the clipping between the yellow and the blue. I'll need to do the same thing with the white board and my walls, except this time I need to cut it into 4 pieces. So I'll double click, use push-pull on one of the edges, push it. I'm going to push it to the right side here. Then I'll do it one more time, push it to the right side of this piece. So if I click out, now I have one board, which is sitting in between my yellow and blues. I'll then copy this one over in a similar way to how I did the walls. And again, I'm going to ensure that I move not here, but to the right side of the wall. Now it's too long. So the way that I've been editing the groups up to this point has been to simply double click on them with the selection tool, switch to the push-pull tool, click, then reference the distance that I want to push it, and click again. Then click out to finish editing that group. That works. However, I wanted to show you a different way. So there's another tool called the scale tool, which allows me to do this without actually entering into the group. So to do that, I'm going to select it first with my selection tool, then hit the S key on my keyboard. This brings up the series of green cubes. Now there's a lot of them, so it's important that we pick the right one. So if I pick this middle one, it'll allow me to change the height of the board, which is not what we want, but just to show you that I can essentially use push-pull without entering into the group. I'll click and undo that. What I want is this middle one on the end that I want to change the length of. I'll click here, and now I can control this length of this board without entering into it. Now I'll simply reference an edge here to align it perfectly. So this saves you a little bit of time in that I don't have to switch to so many tools, but the real advantage comes now when I select this board, hold Shift and click on the second board, and I'm going to copy both of them over, just like this. So they're both aligned in this dimension correctly, but they're both too long in the other direction. And in a nice way, they're the same length. So now what I can do, which I couldn't do before, is use the scale tool and change them both at the same time. So with push-pull, I would have had to edit each one of them individually. Now with the scale tool, I can do them both at the same time. So there you have it. There's cube 2. We'll use cube 2 moving forward to do cube 3.